And I love how we're getting people from all kinds of different backgrounds and some really cool projects going on campus that I didn't know about. So thank you and welcome. I just wanted to start with a story. So I mentioned that I did homeschool my kids and we did things a little bit differently, but one of the things that we did many years ago was we participated in what's called the Yellowfish Road program. And in that program, we went through our neighborhood and we distributed leaflets and painted these yellow fish on the storm sewers. And the idea was that we were raising awareness about how the water that goes into the storm sewers goes straight into the rivers and the other systems. It's not treated. And we need to therefore be mindful about the types of things that we allow to get into the storm system. And this came about because my kids and I had noticed some paint in our local stream, and they were concerned about this. And we sort of followed up on that and looked, what can we do about it? And my son in particular got really excited about this program. And he was a very reluctant reader, and yet the literature related to this Yellowfish Road program, he was willing to read independently on his own. And he was asking questions, and he was really exploring this whole idea quite deeply. And it was so exciting to see that. So that, like, the outcomes, as far as I'm concerned, my son learned and applied skills, and our community benefited from greater awareness of water pollution. So it was a win-win. And this is really what we're aiming to achieve with our Living Lab project. We're looking to give students opportunities to do work that has impacts. We're looking to empower students to show how they can actually make a difference while learning. They don't have to wait till they're graduated. And to be more engaged and motivated in their learning. Because when we have positive associations with our learning, that learning can be deeper and longer lasting. So that's sort of an example of a living lab, and sort of look about what is a living lab, and there's no real formal definition out there. It's a term that's been applied to a lot of different types of projects, but these are two definitions that really resonate with me. So involving users in innovation activities in real environments, and that comes from a paper from Hossein, Lemon, and Westerland, and there's a link to that paper in the sources page at the end of this presentation. Or put another way, the use of real life environments for teaching, researching, testing, applying innovative solutions to our society's challenges. It is a form of experiential learning. It can be problem-based, it can be project-based, and it can have other approaches. It's really an opportunity for students to go beyond your traditional classroom projects and apply it to real world sustainability challenges. In our case, we're looking specifically on campus, and we're looking for those projects to have real impacts. And here on campus, the Living Lab is taking a sustainability context. And the two sort of frameworks that we're generally using for that sustainability context come from the Environmental Sustainability Strategy and the Shift Neutral Climate Action Plan. So the Environmental Sustainability Strategy identifies priority areas for action. So sort of 3 pillars of that is being a leader in environmental sustainability, education, and research, operating the campus sustainably, and embedding sustainability practices in the campus culture through engagement and communications. And there are 27 identified objectives that support those goals. One of those goals, so one of those pillars, is operating the campus sustainably, and that's where the Shift Neutral comes out. The Shift Neutral is our climate action plan. And just to make sure you're all on board, you're all paying attention, does anybody know what our climate action plans are on campus? What's sort of, I didn't phrase that very well. Does anybody know what our climate action target is? By 2050, we aim to be?
Carbon neutral?
Yeah, thank you. We aim to be carbon neutral by 2050. And we have interim targets. For example, by 2025, we would like to be 17.5% below 2015 levels. And associated with that are another 46 initiatives that support those climate targets. A third context that we're also applying to many of our projects is the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Anybody want to share a little bit about what those are all about? I like to get people engaged. Find if I'm just listening, my mind wanders. Anybody want to say anything about UN Sustainable Goals? I'll take that as a no. Okay, so the UN Sustainable Development Goals are a set of 17 goals for 2030 that we're all aiming to make progress on, and it's everything from poverty and gender equality and environmental sustainability and climate change. It covers these 17 different dimensions of creating more sustainable societies, and we're really being asked to apply them not just to developing countries, but also to our own countries, to our own communities, and even we can apply many of them to our own lives, working towards a future that it looks better for all peoples, for all living things on the planet. And it's really provides a framework for how we think about sustainability and how we think about things being interconnected. And in this context, what's really exciting about the campus is that we're really akin to a small city. We have roads, we have a fleet, we have governance models, we have buildings, we have a district heating systems, we have green spaces. And the solutions and the strategies that we use on campus as we're working towards greater sustainability and lower emissions can really be applied elsewhere, can be applied to cities, can be applied in larger, to other institutions and other places. So we can really be a model for others. And I thought I'd take another little break here and get you to take a moment to think about if there are any obvious campus sustainability connections for your courses. And you might want to think about that in terms of energy, in terms of waste, grounds, transportation, climate change, water, food, procurement. I'm just going to give you a moment to think about that. So I don't think I have time to go give everybody an opportunity to participate, but if anybody wants to just share any thoughts and connections that have occurred to them.
I'll bite the bullet here since
Thank you, David.
We need someone to start. Yeah, so my courses are focused on energy use of buildings. The campus is a lot of buildings, so be nice to be able to make some progress on that target.
Absolutely.
I'd also like to chop down the big smokestack as part of this project. So.
Well, wouldn't that be awesome? And someday we'll do it. Anybody else want to share? This is where being in person I think makes it a bit easier.
There's
But
a
we can
hand up.
move.
And
Oh, there
Paul
is.
has
Okay.
his hand up. Yep.
Sure. I sense it's lunchtime. I can just share a kind of communications action process. So one part of the course that I mentioned that our students work towards is demystifying international regimes, large international climate change regimes. So thinking about the COP process in terms of climate change, that's a very complicated one for like the average person to get their head around. So one thing we do is we stage a mock COP. It generally, happens in the SLC. It's a bit of a student intervention. So it's bringing awareness and communication about the process. It tends to be student-driven and student-run in terms of what the most pressing environmental or social goals are for the students at the time in relation to their position on campus, but then with the kind of aim of having some discourse and some kind of intervention publicly and socially around the COP process. And so that becomes a very performative and very active process. But also for students who go through the maybe lead up to that, they're trying to understand that there are multiple levels of complexity involved in making large climate change initiatives work, and that generally there is a challenge for our reliance on large international governance regimes like the UNFCCC process. So basically, it's a kind of a performative intervention, if you will, and that's something that theater and performance we were pretty committed to across the board in our performative work, and then trying to also bridge that with the science that the like climate change modeling science that particularly is there's many initiatives out there today like roads that do a kind of mock process of the COP, and that's really really fun and really scary all at the same time. So that's one thing I can share.
Paul, you're giving me a totally different perspective on the performing arts. This is fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.
I'd like to move on talk a little bit about the history of the Living Labs at University of Waterloo. So the University of Waterloo was the first Canadian campus to develop a campus as a Living Lab program. And that was in the 1990s, and it was in a course called ERS 250, Greening the Campus. And that course ran until the 2005, and nearly 300 campus-focused projects came out of that course. It was a fantastic opportunity, I think, for students. And we learned a lot, or I've learned a lot by looking at some of the work that was produced and some of the thinking that's has come out of that. Number one, I think it's probably no surprise to the rest of you that we learned that students can produce some very valuable and quality work. And we need, that's important. They are valuable assets. But we learned that most projects did not, in fact, have any long-term impacts on campus operations. But let me just give you a couple of examples of some of the things that the students did, so we have some context. They did things like waste audits of different buildings, surveys of travel behaviors. There was a study for the need for more secure bike parking facilities. And most of these projects resulted in recommendations for things that the campus could do to make things better, to make things more sustainable. But ultimately, most of them did not have any major impacts. And what we saw was that what students were interested in working on and what students saw as priorities didn't necessarily match up with the priorities that our campus operations have. And they're ultimately the ones that are making the decisions. Sometimes the recommendations that were made were not practical and didn't properly take into consideration some of the institutional limitations. So, you know, that who gets to make what decisions, where money is available, and how planning occurs and things like that. We also saw that there were many projects that had maybe a larger scope. It's not possible to fully develop the ideas within the time frame of a 3-month course. And we heard that staff often felt a bit overwhelmed by some of the requests that students were making for information, for data, for answers of questions, that type of thing. So learning, definitely learned some valuable things from that experience. The course shut down in 2005, and since that time there have been some further living lab type projects that have occurred. So the Sustainability Office has been asked to support various student initiated projects. And many of these have also had meaningful impacts on campus operations. And what we learned from those types of projects is that these ideas and these projects that students come up with often require additional support. And the Sustainability Office has often been asked to provide some of that support, and that could be things like access to campus data, access to campus stakeholders, and insights into the institutional processes. We also, it's learned that projects that are not tied to a course or degree can often peter out. So students come in energized with new ideas in September. They want to make a difference. They've got great ideas. They have great plans. But by the time midterms come around, and then those essays are due and lab reports are due, and then there's finals, these things get dropped. And you know, it's no surprise. Students are busy just like the rest of us. But when we want to see projects come to fruition, there needs to be some sort of accountability there. And it seemed to me that some of the opportunities were limited by the fact that there was no formalized program to support them. Which moves us on to where we are at now. So formalizing the process. My position was created last fall. So I've been in this position for a couple of months now, and I'm looking to formalize the Sustainable Living Lab program. One of the first steps was to develop a dedicated website for the Sustainability Living Lab. You don't need to copy that down. I'll send you a link to that later. But that's where information about the program can be found, as well as some of the projects that I've sort of developed that can be adopted by courses. And there's contact information if you're looking to develop a project with your course. So next slide there. Key features of this formalized living lab program is that I'm looking to identify sustainability challenges that address campus needs. So these are needs that have been identified by campus groups as gaps where they would like to develop some sort of approach for addressing those gaps. There's interest and there's need. Ideally, these challenges are tied to an existing strategic plan, such as the sustainability strategy or shift neutral. That's the campus side. And then there's the course side. We will also want these projects to be directly related to the course goals. So we want these projects to be filling a need within the course itself. So that may be in terms of developing skills, in terms of learning outcomes, in terms of applying knowledge, that types of things. So I'm looking for a marriage of the two. And I'm developing project proposals based on campus needs that can be adjusted, adapted, and changed in order to meet course goals. And then once a project is underway, the sustainability office's job is to facilitate those projects. So we are acting as the client for the projects, and we can facilitate access to data. We can, ooh, did I end it for everybody? Or did I just somehow? Oh, okay.
We're good.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dave. We can facilitate access to data. We can facilitate engagement with staff, ensuring that there's efficient transfer of needed information. So with larger projects, what I've been doing so far is giving students a couple of days or maybe a week to send in their questions, and I will take all of those questions for our project, and I'll answer those that I can answer directly, and then I will sort of repackage or combine those questions in one package for our campus partners so that they're not pestered on a daily basis, which, you know, as instructors, you know what it's like when you've got a project due, you know, the flood of emails of all those questions that students come in. So we're trying to minimize that type of thing for our campus partners. We can also be there to help students understand the institutional context for the projects, although that's something that I'm still learning about, so I'm glad Matt's helping me on that one. And we're also there to ensure continuity once that course project is over. So that may be bringing those recommendations to our campus partners and supporting them in implementation in some way, or that may be taking the outcomes of that project and using that as the basis for the next stage of a Living Lab project, which can carry over many years or many courses. So this is a nice schematic that James Nugent put together a while ago for the Living Lab program. I'm not a very visual person, but some people like to see this type of an outline, a visual for it. So we're taking information about campus needs, information about student learning, and information about faculty expertise together to design our projects. And then those Living Lab outcomes, which may be in the form of reports, documentation, research, it may be a data collection, maybe recommendations, it may even be a project that has been implemented. And we're also helping to showcase some of those outcomes. So I'm bringing it back to you. You've heard a little bit about what the Living Lab program is. I see there are tons and tons of benefits in many different dimensions, but I'm curious to see what you immediately see as benefits of this Living Lab program.
I can start us off here, Heather, if you'd like. You know, one reason I'm really excited about this program is because, well, for one thing, Waterloo is known for experiential learning, and we're seen as a leader in this nationally, if not globally. And so I think it's only fitting that our campus be a leader in Living Lab program and this type of thing. And I know a lot of our students from all faculties are really excited to, you know, make a better world, to contribute to something exciting like dealing with sustainability. And so I think it's really motivating for students to be part of something like this from all faculties. So yeah, I just think on that level, it's really exciting.
Anybody else? Thank you, James.
This is Bev here. I really like what you're talking about as being sort of that, I guess, in-between person between students and their ideas and like plan operations. Because I know students will often come to us too and say, well, we have all these great ideas. And, you know, we're always kind of pointing to plan operations to make sure that they get there. That's where the approval comes from, but it's kind of nice that, you know, we can instead point them to you and you can sort of help to facilitate that communication.
I didn't realize you were getting those requests as well. Good to know.
Heather, I have a clarification question. Is there a certain number of projects that you would be supporting per term? Or like, what are
well, I am supporting 4 of them, I think, this term. I have the capacity to do a lot more. So I'm not at the point, I'm not expecting to be overwhelmed in the next year or so, and I'm hoping things are going to grow. But you know, as it grows, and if we get to the point where things start to be overwhelmed, may have to relook at the process. But it's still at the learning stage where we're sort of figuring out how best to support this in an efficient way.
Okay, thanks. And I have another logistic one. Is there a certain amount of time, like would you have to know like a month before the course was offered, or is there any logistics that way, just so instructors who were preparing for this know in advance how much lead time you would need?
Well, that would depend a lot on the project and you know who the stakeholders are. So if we need permission, so for example, the work that I'm doing with Christine Barbeau for the restoration project, I've got the recording for her in a little bit. We need a lot of permissions from various groups. So we're looking at that now for sort of a first run of it this summer. On the other hand, we learned of an opportunity the first week of January, and we made it work starting the couple weeks later for a project with knowledge integration. So it depends a lot on the scope. But if you're thinking of integrating this into this course, you know, the earlier you connect with me, the better, because I can do some thinking and exploring as to what's feasible.
Great.
But certainly don't hesitate to approach me because you think it might be too late. It may be too late, but if I know about it, we can see what we can do. Matt, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to add as well that part of our project creation philosophy is that it's a bit of co-creation with plant ops or food services or other units on campus who might actually be responsible for implementing or taking whatever comes out of the project. And if we can kind of pre-develop some of the project ideas, and of course there's still flexibility into how that gets integrated into a course or what approach is taken to it, having that up front then might help, again, accelerate for some of those projects faster. So they would normally take a lot of time to develop that out, but if it's already a pre-identified need or pain point or opportunity area, that we could potentially pivot on short notice for some of them. But as Heather said, some of them are quite complex and need a lot of discussion to make sure it's actually feasible to move forward, especially the stuff that's actually requiring things to be implemented. But it absolutely can be done.
And then I don't see any other questions here. I hope you don't mind me asking here. I'm curious, I know this is in early stages, but are you envisioning a place where instructors could go to see projects that they might want to hop on to and say, oh, yes, that would fit in? Or are you also saying an instructor approaches you and says, is this possible? I don't see it on the list of proposed projects. Can you say a bit more about that?
We are open to both. So if you go to my website, which I hope you'll do after this workshop, you'll see that I do have a list of some projects that we've already scoped out, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit about that after the case studies. But there's also a forum where you can submit ideas for a project that you think might be a good fit for a course, or even if students have ideas, and we can explore sort of what dimensions of that might be a good fit with campus operations. And campus operations can also submit ideas. So these things are all possible. I'm going to shift right now because Shirley is on her lunch break, has agreed to come and talk to us, and we're getting close to the end of her time. So I wanted to make sure we hear from her. There we go. Oh. So Shirley did her master's thesis on, why am I not? Integrating community-based social marketing theory to improve waste sorting behavior at the University of Waterloo. And this was a master's thesis that was completed in 2020. So that was sort of in that interim time, but the Sustainability Office did play a role in supporting that. So Shirley, are you ready? And do you still have time to fit this in?
Yes, should be good.
Thank
Don't
you.
worry. If I go above a little bit, I'll just make up the time later on. And thank you for being considerate. And I am a bit nervous, yes, because I felt defending my thesis again with my my very supportive supervisor at present too. Anyway, so thank you, Heather. And yes, I am very pleasure to be here sharing my case study on redesigning the waste signs in order to improve the waste sorting behaviors on the campus of University of Waterloo. So let me just jump straight into it do I have the control of the slide?
Perhaps
Heather,
you could just
you're
ask
muted.
Heather to, yeah, maybe Heather can just move forward. Yeah.
All right.
Do you need?
So, sorry. Do I? Okay, that would be good. Should be good. So yes, just jump straight into why were we redesigning the signs? Well, because I need a thesis topic, but no, there are some real world problem there to be addressed. And yes, sorry, Heather, I was trying to multitasking, working on the same time when you pick up the United Nations Sustainability Goal, 17 SDG goals. Yes, the 12th SDG goal was also implemented into my, not implemented, I mean, I borrowed the idea of the philosophy into this case study. And yes, UW has a very ambitious leading university in our sustainability. We definitely had an ambitious goal. We wanted to reach a zero waste campus status by 2035 to align with, yes, the United Nations SDG goals or the trend. In order to reach this goal, we wanted to reach a 90% waste diversion rate on 2035. The waste diversion rate means how much percentage of waste we diverted, we bring away from the landfill, from all of the waste we generated on campus. Back in the context of where this case study was conducted, we were around somewhere at 35.3%. And also there are some other types of reasons behind. We were switching contractor of the waste management on campus by the time, so the waste sorting criteria had a major alteration that we figure there's a need to change the waste sign in order to better engage, communicate about the changes of the sorting criteria. Heather, can I have the next one, please? Yes. So now we know why we're redesigning the signs and how. So it's not a Nobel invent or a cutting edge experiment here. It's actually just a pre and post, before and after style of experiment. It's actually easy peasy. And so we were trying to change the signs that you see on the slides now into something into an unknown signs. But before I started off anything, I would like to justify for the old and original signs. They're actually not bad design. It's just we have some, thank you. We have some space to work on to make it better serve our community on the campus. The next slide, please. Yes, and so again, I have some data collection method. And yes, as it is a thesis, there is a theory rooted behind this entire thing. But however, I only have 300 seconds. I will not go into the theory, which is called CBSM, community-based social marketing. It will need 300 minutes, and I will still not be able to address that. So I use 3 major ways to collect the data in order to know what are the real world problems. What are people confused about when they're trying to sort? What are the things that cause problem? What are the things that people are unsure of when they are standing right in front of the garbage can and try to throw them into one of the stream we have? Therefore, I did a survey, including a sorting game, asking people a variety. I think it's like 25 items of where they believe is the correct stream to sort. We did observation where I literally placed some of my little helpers right beside our garbage can, sneakily peek at people throwing their garbage. And yes, of course, we did waste audits before and after we put on some experimental signs. Waste audits are believed to be a traditional, but still very powerful and cost-saving way of knowing some stories from the garbage. The next slide, please. And yes, although I haven't jumped into what is the result of the project, I do like to bring up the role of sustainability office to this project when I was running the whole thing. This project cannot be done without their huge support. So the first thing is, yes, fun, but don't get me wrong, they didn't offer me money. They pointed me to an accessible or what's the right word, appropriate fund that can support this project. Although this project can be done without like extra fun, but having fun here is definitely helping out a lot, make things run more smoothly. We will have, what's the right word, incentive for like survey. And yes, my little collection team and waste audit team were paid so they can be consistent rather than through a voluntarily base that I can't force people, which will make a project probably not following the most scientific way. I know most people here in our audience room today might be designing different topics on your course or capstone project. So yes, I would understand it probably will vary. The fund availability would vary from the size or the scale, how long you're running, the interests of different stakeholder or party on campus, what are the funds available. So yes, reach out to the sustainable office. And the next will be consultation. Yes, I started off this project as my one-person imaginary. Everything is built up in my mind. I would admit, as a student back in time, even until today, sometimes I have like too impractical ideas and plans. It was coming to the sustainability office, talk with Matt, talk with staff and some intelligent, and having their expertise here with some past project implementation experience to help me scale it down, make it into a practical plan, so it's not way off the line. The third one, the one yellow, the stakeholder connection, that was a big one for me. Of course, again, as a student back then, my project would need a huge involvement from, yes, the plant operation and UW Food Service. I believe they were somewhat mentioned in the earlier talk. The sustainability office helped me on the initial touch-up, so I get to contact who potentially will be willing to and can help me out with the project. And I know, I believe people would understand when we are trying to run a project. Different stakeholders might be interested, but everybody have different thing they wanted. So that's also one important thing that we need to like go back and forth and using like communication to really figure it out. And of course, some project support. I literally just went to Sustainable Office with all of my trivial inquiries, questions, and etc. Oh, the next slide, please. So yes, of course, the direct changes on campus of this project is literally the sign got changed from this into the other thing on the right-hand side of the slides. So the changes are we changed the signs from monocolor and some icon into real-world items or product that were collected on campus. And these are the things that we figure after the survey, the observation and waste audit, we figure out these are the things that people are confused by, and they are now put colorful icons on the sign. Although the yellow one is a type I do like to bring it up. It is not with like the real world items on the sign itself, but it means a lot. It's what I would like to highlight, the importance or the beauty of running a real world project. I do have my own assumption or guess when first starting off this project. I know I'm going to design some new signs. And yes, there are some limitations when doing it because I cannot change like the color code of the signs, etc. But I never thought of I would figure out that people actually have issue with some items that just do not fit in any of these streams, which is why we developed the other stream, the yellow stream. And I personally believe it has like strong impact, which I don't have the stat for it, but I did have some like qualitative feedback from some of our janitors, from garbage can collectors telling me that having this new sign helps a lot. The next slide, please. So now you can see our signs from our waste streams. The waste station has been changed into the other three image on the right. The yellow bin, as I said, yes, the pizza boxes are so notorious previously because they are understandable to fill in any of these streams. It is paper-based, so if it shows a paper stream, we can blame out people. Some people regard it as garbage because it's a little bit contaminated by the oil. Some people put them into organic because they believe it can recompose. Either are right, but it's just because based on pizza box being so junky, if any of them landed in one of the smaller stream, it just got stuck there, and the rest of the waste will overflow and cause a lot of trouble there. The next slide, please. The next slide. And so I mentioned the direct influence, and there are some indirect influence which I really would like to highlight on. This is what, as a positive spillover, I personally think or regard it, that there are some positive impact went beyond my project. The first one I believe will be connecting intelligence and interest. So I was mentioning I have a little team helping me with sitting beside garbage cans, sneakily peek at everybody and do the waste audit. They are a team of students I recruited from the campus compost club back then. Those students are people from different projects on campus, but they share the interest. And also establishing the communication channels. I did mention I had the support from the Sustainable Office to help me did the initial touch up with operation and UW food service. However, there's still a lot of communication. I would say it's called silent cost. I spent in the middle of going back and forth, make sure who is the one really can help. There's no blame. It just would need to figure out who actually can and are willing, have the capacity to help out. And I'm happy to know that later on after my project was done, someone else, my other colleague, someone on campus, still follow a similar path to contact these person. And because these communication channel has been established, it is a lot easier than when I first need to run around, call around, email around, figure it out. And I know it's a bit side topic, but I also reach out to Dan, who is also here in our audience today, because we had a much casual conversation later on when the whole project was also done, that he mentioned to me that he were able to bring a little bit of the concept or idea of this project as an example into one of his capstone project, which I am also pretty proud of. So the last slide, please. I know I go over a little bit time limit. I'm sorry for that. I am very happy if you have any question, but yes, I went off of the time limit. So if you have any question I can help out, please do not hesitate to shoot me an email. And I'm Han Young, but I'm going to go by Shirley. And thank you for the listen today.
Well, that was brilliant. Thank you, Shirley. So, Robyn, are you here?
Yes, I am. Let me just get my video turned on. Can you see it? Perfect.
Yes. So Robyn McIntyre is currently working on a Sustainability Living Lab project for her Plan 405 course, and she's working as part of a team. She's going to tell us a little bit about what she's doing right now.
Yes. So as Heather said, my name is Robyn McIntyre, and I am currently working with the Living Lab. I have 5 team members, Christine, Natasha, Caleb, and Connor, who unfortunately weren't able to be here today. But this term, we do have the opportunity to work with Heather, Matt, and the Sustainability Office and the Living Lab through our 4th year course, Plan 405, which is an integrated planning project. So following the completion of 20 months of our co-op, this class provides upper year students with opportunities to apply knowledge gained throughout our degree and our co-op placements. We're given realistic project experiences prior to graduation, and as such, the course follows a very similar structure to what we might experience in the workplace. Generally, this course follows a request for proposals structure, where we begin by being divided into teams who are assigned a request for proposal. Each project team has a week to prepare a response to that proposal, which includes a methodology and a timeline for achieving the deliverables outlined in their request. We submit our responses to the client and adjust based on feedback, and then we begin on our projects. The remainder of the term is essentially just a work term, but we do have a midterm update and a final presentation to the client. So right at the beginning of our course, my group is matched with Heather, Matt, and the Sustainability Office to work on a transportation demand management planning study. The goal of the request for proposals that we were given was to begin working towards action item 41 from the university's Shift Neutral Climate Action Plan, which is to establish a transportation demand management plan. And as such, our team was asked to prepare a work plan that reviewed past work on commuter mode choices of employees at the university, used GIS to conduct a spatial analysis to determine distance from campus and ease of access to sustainable transportation, in addition to completing research on non-infrastructural barriers to sustainable transportation uptake and best practices of comparable universities. So our team broke the proposal down into 3 phases. We began with a research phase, which consisted of consolidating materials, completing our literature review, and reviewing best practices. The second phase was our analysis, which we're actually currently completing, where we're doing a geospatial analysis to look at distance from campus and options and preferred mode choice for commuters, in addition to non-infrastructural barriers to the sustainable transportation reuptake. Our final phase is a consolidation where we're going to take all of the data and research that we found so far and combine it into a final report with recommendations as to what the Sustainability Office might be able to bring forward as recommendations for more sustainable transportation reuptake. Working with the Sustainability Office has been a great help on this project. Actually, they're kind of the ones who started the whole project, working with our professor to submit the request for proposal. They've been a great resource with data. We've been able to get a lot of help with spatial data and really be able to scope the project to what they're looking for. We've been able to apply our academic and workplace skills gained through our co-op and the last 4 years of our degree into this study, while helping them with action item 41, which has been really helpful. It's been really nice to kind of see the application of the work that you're actually doing. Personally, I've never done a project like this where I've worked so closely with the university, so it's been really great to, like I said, be able to have that application kind of laid out for you and to see where things could go with the project that you're doing. But yeah, overall, our team's experience has been very, very positive, and we're looking forward to sharing our midterm results with Matt and Heather next week before our final presentation in early April.
Thank you, Robyn. And I'm looking forward to seeing that next week too.
Sounds good.
Thanks for coming in. Did anybody have any quick questions? Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is this presentation from Christine Barbeau. And you can't hear that, can you? Okay. Can you hear now?
There's when you if you reshare your screen, Heather, there should be a little.
Click on the share content button in the top right hand corner. There's a little button that says include computer sound. So if you have to toggle that to the right, and that should then share the sound on your computer. So, so stop sharing and then try resharing, and then in the top right hand corner there'll be an include computer sound toggle.
Okay. Thank you. So now I need to find the screen again.
Yeah, you're on mute, but if you click on the share button, and then before you click on anything, you'll see in the top right hand corner include computer sound.
Hi everyone, I'm Christine Barbeau and I'm continuing lecture in SIRS. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the workshop today, but I wanted to just do a quick video kind of discussing my perspectives and my feelings towards the benefits of the Living Lab program and how I think it can really be important for campus sustainability, but as well as enriching our student experience. So I teach a course in the summer, and it's a three-week block field course, and it's called ERS 341. It's a restoration conservation practice course. So we have students come for 3 weeks, and we try to expose them to different conservation and restoration projects. Historically, it's been more of a piecemeal approach. We have worked with alumni from our department to find different restoration projects around Waterloo, the Waterloo region, and we allow students to come out and, get to experience them, but they aren't there from, the beginning of a restoration plan to developing it to long-term monitoring of the plan. We also find that a lot of students are very interested on sustainability projects on campus. Now, historically, operations and grounds have been very busy, and being bombarded by different project requests has been a lot and overwhelming, and the ability for the Sustainability Office and the Living Lab program to have those connections to those key stakeholders on campus, and then for students within our classes to be able to work alongside and already have that dialogue happening between Living Lab and the Sustainability Office and key stakeholders on campus is really invaluable. We're really able to actually determine what the university, what their need is when it comes to sustainability projects. What don't we know? What do we need to know? And then from there, what do the students have an interest in? What is the course? So we have a restoration course. So on campus, there's a lot of areas that are of concern. So there's high levels of invasive species. So can we mirror that need with this great opportunity for experiential learning for students and really the idea of my course is to do some of these larger long-term restoration projects that are a need by the university and for moving us forward to more sustainable practices, but they don't have the capacity, the person power to do it, as well as the long-term outlook of these courses and these projects. So with my course, we're actually able to tackle some of these projects that have been identified through the Sustainability Office and Living Lab, and we're able to do them over the long term. So year after year, we're able to follow up with these projects and really make a difference in campus sustainability. So the connection between key players within the university field, so the plant operations and grounds, and that partnership that they have and the relationships they've already developed with the Sustainability Office and Living Labs has really allowed us to be able to undertake some of these really interesting, really fascinating, and really meaningful projects on campus where we can push campus sustainability in a positive way while having students engage with their university campus and learn about restoration practices and be able to see the long-term change of different areas and the removal of invasive species. So we are really excited to get this course completely underway and get tackling some of these big projects, these big restoration projects on campus, and really get these partnerships going. And I think it will really help us to achieve some of our sustainability goals. So hopefully I'll see everyone at another time when we continue talking more about the Living Lab opportunities.
Okay, I need to find where we were again. So that is Christine, and we're currently working with her to sort of realize those opportunities for her course. Sort of doing some preliminary work this year, setting things up for the future, and the hope is that the summer of 2023, this project is going to get seriously underway. So I said some things take a little bit more planning time, and some of that planning time is stuff that's going to be done within the course. So it will be starting this summer in one form. I'm going to skip that because we're running a little bit behind time. Matt will tell you that I can turn any conversation into something about heat pumps, and we do have a heat pump feasibility study that has been scoped out for the University of Waterloo. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but it's sort of, this is an example of how we've defined the projects that we have. So they start with a background. So the context here would be some of the buildings that are not on the district heating systems would be a good opportunity for us to look at sort of a first stage of decarbonizing heating and cooling on campus using ground source heat pumps. And then so that would be the background. And then there's a section on the scope of work could include. So this is a list of some of the things that we would like to see. And of course, a project doesn't have to address all of them. We can pull out the ones that are relevant for the course. And we can add on to that if there's something that a course needs to include for their projects to be relevant for the course. So for the heat pump thing, that might be researching geological suitability, researching the building requirements, cost analysis, climate impact analysis, energy impact analysis, best practices, what are some of the incentives that are available, what are some of the other things that might be considered. So those are the types of things that you might find in the scope of work for a heat pump feasibility study. We have a list of proposed deliverables. And one of the ones that we particularly ask for is a work plan early in the term outlining key milestones and responsibilities. And that's simply sort of a safeguard there to ensure that we're on the same page in terms of where things are heading and some of their ideas for solutions, making sure that they are consistent with practices on campus and what is realistically feasible. we'll have a list of campus stakeholders and key contacts. So that would generally be me and sometimes also Matt in the sustainability office. So this is a list of some of the projects that we already have listed on our website. There's a fueling station decision analysis study, the ground source heat pump feasibility study, naturalized landscaping business case, zero emission landscaping equipment business case, and some communication strategies for shorter showers in residence, for sustainable food choices on campus, and for our waste sorting tools. And I'm also in the process of developing about another dozen more and always looking for new ideas. So there's a lot of different types of projects that are currently on the table. But I have big plans for the future. I've got big plans and big dreams. So the first stage is to, we're just formalizing the process right now. There's going to be a lot of learning happening in the first year or so as we figure out what is possible, where the needs are, and what works and what doesn't. But I'd like to see us move towards some ongoing projects like the one that Christine described, some multi-stage projects where the first stage might be done by engineering students, for example, and the next stage might be done by economics students, and we're building sort of a strong basis for some major changes on campus by drawing in expertise from different disciplines, which can happen in that multi-stage mechanism, but I'm really hoping that we're going to be able to move towards some transdisciplinary projects where students will, from different courses in different disciplines, will be working together on a project, drawing in their various expertise to create one final report or outcome together. I think that's where what our society needs to get better at doing, and we have an opportunity here on campus to sort of build some of those skills and build some of the thinking that goes into these transdisciplinary projects. But it's not going to be an easy thing to achieve. So it's a long-term plan. Larger implementation projects, really exciting. UBC a couple of years ago had a project where they a 18-story mass timber residence building was built on their campus, that occurred under their campus as a living lab umbrella. It was at the time the tallest mass timber building in the world, really pushing the envelope and demonstrating what is possible with the sustainability. The projects that we have so far and we have planned for the short term are all tied to courses, but the living lab as a concept has the potential to also be tied to research. So are there opportunities for campus research to use the campus as a test ground for different ideas? There's also, I'd like to see us seeking out projects from the community. We can certainly do more. We can work with nonprofits, we can work with community members, we can work with community groups, we can work with municipalities in the same way that we're working with some of our campus partners. And I'd really like to see us get some more projects that are testing these new ideas and really showcase how University of Waterloo is an innovative university in so many dimensions. So they're great places that we can take these things, but gotta do it one step at a time. So the multi-stage and the transdisciplinary projects, I wanted to sort of walk through what I see those things could look like. So this is not a project, this is a thought exercise. Plant Operations has not communicated an interest in exploring campus biodigesters at this time, but it sort of gives us an idea of what things might look like. So a biodigester is simply a facility that takes organic waste, such as food waste, and breaks it down either aerobically or anaerobically to produce compost and recycling those nutrients back. And you know, if campus operations were to say that yes, they would be interested in heading in this direction, well then we could get students to do some background research, understanding what are the different types of options available and how does it work and what are the requirements. We would need an economic feasibility study. We would need some engineering input. We would need environmental impact to understand that environmental impact. We would need a plan for how to engage various stakeholders on campus who would be involved. And we'd need a communications plan for how do we communicate the need to keep, when we're generating food waste, to keep that waste pure, and communications for people, the stakeholders, and how do they deal with that waste and work with it. So there's many different dimensions to a big project like that. And this could be carried out as 6 separate studies in 6 separate courses. But wouldn't it be awesome if we could bring 6 different courses together to work on this together and do it at the same time, realizing synergies and helping everybody to understand the different dimensions to these bigger problems. So that's where I'd like to be heading. This is some of the things that I'll be keeping in mind as I'm developing living lab projects and looking for opportunities. So I ask that you sort of keep that in mind too and think about how that might work with your courses. So that's the Living Lab program on campus. I think I'd just rather, we're at 2:30 actually, so we will wrap it up now. Really exciting. I'm glad you joined us today. I hope you will reach out to me if this seems like something that might fit in with your course. So my name is Heather McDiarmid. I'm the Sustainability Living Lab Coordinator, and that is my contact.
And Heather, can we share these slides so I can send them out to the participants?
I will send you a copy of them, absolutely, and you can share them.
Perfect. This has been awesome. Thank you so much. I love the idea of the transdisciplinary work that you're aiming for. I think that's where so much of the impact will come, and what a great opportunity for our students to experience that now, rather than when they graduate and they will have to be working with other people from different disciplines. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we are at our time. Yes. Do you have a few minutes to stay?
Absolutely, I can stay. I was hoping to have saved time for questions, but
yes.
So
anyone who has to go, please, feel free to go. But I can stay for a few minutes. And again, Heather has given her place. Any questions, comments? Lots of thank yous.
I just had one quick question, Heather. As I mentioned, there are students that have approached us with ideas, but the students are generally, it's not necessarily related to a course, like it might be a student group. Would you be interested in helping out with like student groups, or are you focusing mainly on courses?
So I'm focusing mainly on courses, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to hear about student group projects. So absolutely, send them my way. I may not have the same capacity to support them as I do with student courses, with course-based projects, but I will do whatever I can to support them.
All right, thanks.
I think, Bev, it's useful to hear their ideas, because that might be something that we can bring forward to plant ops in a different context, and or it gets translated into a living lab project idea for a future course. So I think there's always that. Having that feedback mechanism is really valuable. So yeah, keep that open communication, and whether it's with Heather or myself, I think sharing those ideas or concerns, if that's what they are, is really important.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, I see some of the enthusiasm and the ideas and that kind of stuff that happens in the student groups that isn't necessarily connected to courses. So it'd be nice to, for sure, capitalize on that enthusiasm and students that are willing to do some hands-on work. Yeah. And even if, even if what they take can be incorporated into another course or something like that, I think it would be nice. Yeah.
One of the big challenges we have on student group engagement is the transitory nature of students on campus, especially at Waterloo, where they're always on a 4-month cycle of co-op placements. They can do amazing work. It's kind of building that consistency on something that might need to be managed over multiple terms. That is often the challenge. So for shorter term projects, there's always lots of opportunity. The longer term ones, building that accountability into the course structure, I think brings a new kind of layer of we can make sure that we're actually going to get something out of it, and that, there's working with the professor can leverage some of that experience as well.
And I think student ideas, even if they are not able to fully realize them at that stage, they can be sort of the groundwork for fourth-year projects. They can be an opportunity to sort of build out an idea so that it's ready for as a fourth-year project. That they can continue to work on it under a course umbrella. We can help them get to that stage if it's suitable. Any other questions?
Can I ask one from a kind of skeptical perspective?
Go for it, David.
I guess I'm just, wondering about the potential for letting the university say certain things are being looked at when they're having students look at them, where those things might actually be impractical to be designed by students. Like some of the engineering projects, for example, they're actually pretty complex, and it would be professional engineers who would actually design those things.
Yeah. So